you recording?
Yes.
We're
back.
Oh, so we're back. Back, bitches.
Back in the most chaotic way we could muster.
Literally nothing has changed.
It's gotten worse.
I think so.
And this is all my fault this time.
No. But, well, I postponed from this weekend to, like, sometime in the week. Oh.
I just saw her in the video. I was like, oh, little creepy shit.
Oh, so cute. Say a word.
Yeah.
Say something. Bark.
She snores when she sleeps on the pillow next to me. She snores, and then she whistles. She's like, you know when your nose whistles when you breathe? Hers does that too. It's like, what the
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, it's so cute how she licks you on your face. Oh, it's so cute.
No, this morning she kicked me in the eye. Oof.
Oh, shit.
Hello, baby.
Oh, she's so
Ow, sister. Don't you want to say something? Oh, you're fat now. Oh. Now I'm like always tempted to give her treats and I can't because at the graduation the lady just gave treats and treats and treats to everyone because she did like little competitions. So now there's a whole jar of treats for her. Oh, and now I have to like, oh, we can't give you treats because you're fat.
Oh, shit.
I was like, now everyone in this house is fat.
Oh, come on. No, that's not true. Okay, so I guess we're going to talk about murder now.
Yay! I forgot how this goes.
At least this is a little bit removed, I guess, because it's stuff that took place in, like, I almost said 1900s, and like I guess 1923.
Oh, that is long ago.
Yeah, so there's at least some separation.
Yeah.
If I look skew, it's because I put you on my other screen so that I can have my notes on the screen.
It's clever. Yes.
I know. Alright. So, have you ever heard of Daisy de Melker?
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about her.
Okay, well, now you're going to learn a lot about her.
Yay.
Oh, okay.
What?
I almost thought my research was 7 pages long, but then I remembered I put my font to 16, like size 16. I was like, when I looked last, it was like 3 pages long. Well, why is it 7?
I mean, having printed your notes before, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 7.
I know. Anyway, so today I am going to cover Daisy de Melker, and I have just realized that I usually do a disclaimer, and I've forgotten to put it in.
As usual.
As usual.
What the hell is that?
You hear the wind.
It's a wind. I thought that was like a truck going right past your house.
It's literally the wind.
Oh my
Maybe I should close the window.
Is it a tornado?
Open that much. No, it's not even open that much. That's the worst of it all.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Maybe I should put my fan
I
off
hope you
too.
didn't see my boobs because I'm not wearing a bra.
I turned around to put off my fan so I didn't see.
Oh, good. Good.
Damn, I should have been recording video.
Well, okay. So, Daisy de Melker was born Daisy Louisa Hancorn Smith. Hancorn. Must I say Hancorn or Hancorn? Because I don't know. She's probably Afrikaans, but she was born Daisy Louisa Hancorn Smith.
Wow.
In Seven Fountains, but it's now known as it was also known as Grahamstown, but I think it's now known as Makanda in the Eastern Cape.
Isn't it still called Grahamstown?
Well,
oh, but they've renamed everything.
I think it's been renamed to Makanda, and I think it was named after. I can't remember. I should have written that down. It was like named after a Zulu leader or something like that. Wait, I'm literally gonna go and check it now because otherwise it's gonna bother me. Seven Fountains. Oh, okay, yeah. So it was named after a Xhosa prophet
Oh, okay.
named Makana.
All right.
Yeah. So it was Grahamstown, but it's now known as Makana,
Okay.
which I didn't
Interesting.
even know that it was renamed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, so she was born in Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape on the 1st of June, 1886.
Jeez, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, so she's born on the 1st of June, so she's a Gemini.
Ah, gosh, another one of those. Also, your curtain behind you is so creepy because it keeps moving, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
It's just the wind, literally. If you see a person coming out of there, I'm gonna poop in my pants.
Me too.
Stop. Okay. Okay. Now you freaked me out.
I'm freaked out too. Oh gosh.
No, it's so dark. Like I'd rather have the curtain. No.
What's in there?
My room.
Oh, is that the bedroom? Right.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit better.
Yeah, that's
The
less
lights
creepy.
on.
We're not even on the creepy part yet.
Oh. I don't claim any bad energy. Go away.
Put some sage on.
Actually, can you 2 seconds and I will. I'm literally gonna have to burn some white sage now. It's like I forgot where I was for a second. I'm just gonna go get the lighter. Oh, here's Patrick as well. Okay, good.
Okay, good. So he'll protect you from intruders.
And you can put the pizza in the oven.
All right. Wow.
So, so like I said, born in Grahamstown / Makanda, and she was one of 11 children.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. That's a lot.
That is a lot. I can't even imagine having that many children or having that many siblings.
Yeah.
For that matter,
Yeah.
So at 12 years old, she and 2 of her brothers went to Bulawayo in Rhodesia, but that's obviously now known as Zimbabwe, to live with her father, William Stringfellow Harncorn Smith.
Oh. These names.
And her mother's name was Fanny Augusta Matilda Bird.
Oh my goodness.
Fanny is just
Fanny Bird.
It's such a Fanny is just such a funny name to me.
Imagine your name's Fanny Bird.
Oh, what bird?
Bird ass. May she rest in peace.
Oh yeah, no, definitely she's long gone. So William's father, in other words, Daisy's father's father, so her grandfather, came to South Africa as a 15-year-old boy. He was a boatswain for Lord Nelson in the British Royal Navy.
Oh.
And a boatswain is also known as a bosun, is a ship's officer that's responsible for maintenance of the ship and its equipment.
So not a fun job.
No, definitely. And obviously he's also someone who came from the UK.
Yeah, and he's
South
a kid.
Africa. So Daisy, moved in with her father and her brothers because they needed a woman to do all the household chores and things like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because they're the superior gender and yet they can't do anything.
Exactly that. And there'd also been talks of a war brewing in South Africa at the time, which is quite common for that time. So 3 years later, she moved and she became a boarder at the Good Hope Seminary School in Cape Town.
Cemetery school?
Seminary school.
How do you go to cemetery school? You just live.
No, you practice. You practice being dead. I don't know. You prepare.
Okay.
Then, in 1903, when she was 17, she returned to Zimbabwe, but not long after, she decided to move back to South Africa, and she enrolled in the Bera nursing home in Durban. She moved back to South Africa because she found the rural life in Zimbabwe too boring. And I also found a source that said she hated her father and didn't feel like she fitted in the family. So
it's probably because he treated her like a housekeeper. I mean, that's one reason.
Exactly, probably. So she would go on holidays to Zimbabwe, and it was on one of these holidays that she met her future husband, or hopefully a future husband, I guess, Bert Fuller. He was a civil servant in the Native Affairs Department at Broken Hill. And they planned to marry in October of 1907.
Jeez.
But he got black water fever and he died on the day that they planned to get married.
I've never heard of black water fever.
I am going to explain
also,
what it is now.
What a terrible time to die.
I know, like literally
Ouch.
on the day that they were going to get married, he died, and Daisy was at his bedside. So black water fever is a complication of malaria, of a malaria infection, in which the red blood cells burst in the bloodstream, releasing hemoglobin directly into the blood vessels and into the urine, frequently leading to kidney failure.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it's quite a tough way to go.
Yeah, that's terrible. Shame. And I assume she was like, 17, so he was also probably really young.
Yeah, she was, in 1907, it was 4 years after she was 21 at this time.
Okay.
Yeah. So he left a will bequeathing £100 to his fiancée. Because back in those days, we were under British rule.
Yeah, I remember my grandpa talking about shillings and stuff like that.
Yes,
they used to use, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, she was left £100. I tried to look up how much that is in today's currency, but, I couldn't find...
Yeah.
I didn't know I couldn't find how to convert it.
Yeah.
It just kept on giving me... I tried to say, 1907, what's £100 in rands, but it kept on giving me... What is 1,907 pounds in rand? That's not what I want to know, but okay. So Daisy later married a man called William Alfred Cowell, a plumber that lived in Johannesburg. She was 23 and he was 36 when they got married.
All right. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. They had... Is that your age gap with Bass?
I don't know. We're about 8 years, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's old.
So, so they had 5 children, but 4 of them unfortunately died. The first were twins who died in infancy, not long after she gave birth.
Sure.
The third died from an abscess on the liver, and then the 4th suffered from convulsions and bowel trouble.
Oh, no.
And they died at 15 months old.
Oh, that's so sad. Even James thinks it's sad.
And then the last and only surviving child was called Rhodes Cecil, was born in June 1911.
Is that the Cecil Rhodes?
No.
Oh. Well, my grandfather's...
I don't think so.
My grandfather's second name is also Cecil.
Ah.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I think because his first name is Rhodes.
Oh.
And I think the person who's, I don't know, Rhodes, the university is named after, a settler.
Oh, okay.
So, don't quote me on that.
No. Again, our knowledge of this country's history is stellar.
Yeah. So on the morning of the 11th of January, 1923, William became ill after he took Epsom salts that Daisy had prepared for him.
I've never used Epsom salts, like, in my mouth.
Internally, no.
Yeah, in a foot, in like a foot soak, yes.
Yes. Yeah, I've also never, like, drank Epsom salts.
Yeah. Doesn't seem safe.
It just seems a little bit gross.
Well, that too, yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, yes.
A doctor came to attend to Cal, or William, but he didn't consider his condition to be serious, so he prescribed a bromide mixture. So bromide ions have the ability to decrease the sensitivity of the central nervous system, which makes it effective to use as a sedative or anti-epileptic or a tranquilizer.
Okay. Just so you know,
this aids.
Just so you know, your chair is creaking quite a bit. Yeah. Just so you know, I can hear it.
So this aids patients who, for example, suffer from seizures or babies who have colic, and is even used for as cough medicine.
Okay.
But even after the doctor prescribed the bromide, whatever, William's condition deteriorated very quickly, and he took a turn for the worst soon after the doctor left. Daisy summoned the neighbors to help, and they called for a second doctor. And William was in excruciating pain when the second doctor arrived. He was actually foaming from the mouth, and he went blue in the face, and he screamed in agony anytime anyone touched him.
Ooh.
Until he eventually died.
Ow, that sounds terrible.
So the second doctor suspected... Okay, so this is a difficult word. I don't actually know how to say it. I tried to look it up.
Strychnine.
Wait, let me...
It's strychnine. Strychnine poisoning, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I listen to medical stuff a lot.
So the doctor suspected strychnine poisoning, basically. So it's a highly toxic, colorless, bitter, crystalline alkaloid used as a pesticide. So it's usually used to kill small vertebrates such as birds and rodents.
That's mean.
And when it's inhaled, when it's inhaled, swallowed, or absorbed through the eyes or mouth, it causes poisoning, which results in muscular convulsions and eventually death through asphyxia.
Jeez.
So the doctor refused to sign the death certificate because obviously they suspected something was not 100% right. And an autopsy followed that was conducted by District Surgeon Dr. Fergus. After the post-mortem was concluded, they said that the cause of death was chronic nephritis or nephritis.
I would say nephritis.
I'm going to say nephritis,
right?
Yeah. So that's chronic inflammation of the kidneys. And a cerebral hemorrhage.
Jeez.
So that's what they deemed as the cause of death.
Yeah.
Daisy, the sole beneficiary of her husband's will, inherited £1,795.
10 times more than the
quite
first.
a bit of money.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit of money back in those days.
I smell a rat.
So, 3 years to the day after the death of her husband, Daisy married Robert Sprout. Sprout? It's a very weird name. It's Sproat.
Sprout. I don't know.
Also a plumber. So he was also a plumber. So the second plumber that she's married. So she was 36 at this point. And in October of 1926, Robert became violently ill.
Oh.
He
Sounds
was
like a
in
pattern.
incredible. He was in incredible pain, and he had intense muscle spasms, which might sound familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, he actually recovered.
Oh.
A few weeks passed, and he fell ill again after drinking beer whilst he was in the company of Daisy and his stepson, Rhodes.
Wow.
He died on the 6th of November, 1927.
Jeez. Was it as agonizing
I
as the
see
other
Nick's-
one? Oh.
Hello, baby. Hi, Nix. Hi, Nix. Hey, baby. Say hello.
Did you hear that?
I heard that. So he died on the 6th of November 1927, and this time the attending doctor was Dr. Malinik. Malinik? Yeah. Malinik. Weird surname, but anyway. He certified that the cause of death was arteriosclerosis, like, the thickening of the blood vessels.
Yeah.
And a cerebral hemorrhage, but no autopsy was performed.
How do you just diagnose two different people with cerebral hemorrhages?
And then don't even suspect the wife of
Yeah.
maybe something sketchy. Anyway, Daisy inherited over 4,000 pounds,
Jeez.
plus a further 560 pounds that was paid by his pension.
Okay.
Yeah. So Daisy married for the third time on the 12th of January 1931. She married Sidney Clarence de Melker, which is obviously where she got her last surname from. He was a widower, but he was also a plumber.
All right.
Third plumber. And her son Rhodes was 19 at this time. And his sister-in-law, Rhodes' sister-in-law, Eileen de Melker. Is that his sister-in-law? I mean, Daisy's sister-in-law.
Oh.
Eileen de Melker said that Rhodes was unwilling to get up in the morning, and that he was unwilling to get up in the morning to go and work, and he was like a very lazy person. Although there was also a witness at Daisy's trial, spoiler alert, that described Rhodes as bright and conscientious. So
Okay.
a little bit of a mixed bag there.
Yeah.
In late February 1932, Daisy travelled from Germiston to Turfontein, where she went to a chemist to obtain arsenic.
Of course she did.
So she actually used her former name of Sprout and said that she required the poison to, quote, destroy a sick cat. I don't like the wording of that at all.
No. Because you're not
it's
also
very-
saying that the cat is dead yet. You're going to destroy
Yeah,
a sick
that's my
cat. Ugh.
That's my thing. So,
Also, on that note, sorry to interject, but Bass made us watch Don't Fuck with Cats.
I don't want to ever watch that.
I literally
No.
had anxiety watching it, but then after they get past the cat part, then it's manageable because you're like, okay, fine, he's hurting people, which is terrible, but it's better than animals.
Oh,
But
I
yeah.
can't. I don't want to watch it.
I don't know.
Anyway.
It's not pleasant.
No, I can't even imagine. I've seen it so many times, and I'm just like, I know it's not for me. Cannot do it. Speaking of documentaries and Netflix and stuff like that, have you seen The Tinder Swindler?
Not yet. I see it everywhere, but I haven't watched it.
Please watch it. It's so good.
Okay.
I watched it, I think, last week Friday. It was so good.
All right. I'll watch it. I saw it Checkers had Tinder Swindler deals and stuff.
Yes. It's so
I'll
funny.
watch it.
So, less than a week after she obtained the arsenic, on the 2nd of March 1932, Rhodes, her son, who was 20 at the time, fell ill at work after drinking coffee from a flask, thermostat, from a flask that his mother had prepared for him.
Wow.
One of his co-workers, James Webster, also became really ill, and he had a little bit of Rhodes's coffee in the morning, but luckily he had recovered in a few days.
Jeez.
However, Rhodes died at home on the 5th of March, 1932. Yeah.
Wow. That's
A
brutal.
Anyway, a post-mortem was conducted, and the cause of death was said to be cerebral malaria. So that's basically malaria that just reaches your brain. He was buried at New Brixton Cemetery the following day, and on the 1st of April, de Melker received £100 from Rhodes's life insurance policy.
Yeah.
So by this time, Daisy's former brother-in-law, William Sprout, so not the same William that she had married first, her second husband's brother, raised his suspicions concerning his brother Robert's death to the authorities. Police obtained a court order permitting them to exhume the body of Robert, Williams, and Rhodes on the 15th of April 1932. Rhodes's remains were found to be in an unusually good state of preservation, which is actually a characteristic of the presence of arsenic in large quantities.
Dang.
Traces of arsenic were also found in the viscera, backbone, and hair of his body. Both William Cowell and Robert Sprout were very decomposed, but traces of what did you say it was
Strychnine.
called? Strychnine. But traces of strychnine could be found in the vertebrae of both the men.
Okay.
Their bones also had a pinkish discoloration, suggesting that the men had taken pink strychnine?
What's strychnine?
Strychnine. Jeez. Now I'm combining all.
Yeah.
Anyway, strychnine. Okay, so suggesting that the men had taken pink strychnine, which was common at the time.
Oh. I didn't know you get them in different colours.
And I don't know how many colours there are. Traces of arsenic were also found in the hair and fingernails of James Webster, which was Rhodes's surviving colleague. A week later, Daisy was arrested and charged with the murder of all three men. The newspapers gave the story a lot of coverage, and public interest in the case grew exponentially. The chemist that Daisy got the arsenic from, Mr. Abraham Spilkin, contacted the police after he recognized Daisy in a photo from the newspaper article, and he told them that she had actually signed the poisons register, which I'm like, poisons register, okay, as Mrs. D.L. Sprout. So confirming that, she used one of her previous surnames.
Yeah.
At the time, it was normal for anyone accused of murder under South African law to be tried by a judge and jury, although the law allowed them to the option of being tried by a judge and two assessors. And an assessor is basically just a judge's assistant.
Okay.
Yeah. So since the public opinion weighed so heavily against Daisy, she opted, on the advice of her legal counsel, for the latter. So to be judged by a judge and two assessors instead of a judge and jury, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
So Daisy's trial actually lasted for 30 days, and 60 witnesses were called for the Crown, or prosecution. I mean, back then we were under British rule, so it was the Crown. And the defense had half the number of witnesses that they could call to the stand, or less than half, really. Expert toxicologist and professor of pharmacology at Witwatersrand University, Dr. J.M. Watt, I'm too Afrikaans. Dr. J.M. Watt was called upon to Afrikaans. He was called upon to present the forensic evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge basically stated that the Crown couldn't conclusively prove that William and Robert had died from strychnine. What is it again?
Yeah, strychnine. You had it right. Yeah.
Oh, I was right.
Yeah.
Had died from strychnine poisoning. But on the third count, the judge concluded that de Melker had murdered his son. And this was evident because, 1, Rhodes Cowell had died of arsenic poisoning. 2, the coffee flask held traces of arsenic. 3, the accused had put arsenic into the flask. And 4, the defense of suicide was insupportable. Like, they couldn't support that. Why would you commit suicide by putting arsenic in coffee and then having letting your coworker take a sip of your coffee?
Yeah, why would you choose like the longest drawn out way? Like poison is not ideal.
Exactly, in such a brutal way. Exactly. No.
Yeah, it's easy to just jump off a building.
Exactly. When the judge passed the sentence, Jay-Z. Oh, okay.
I missed this so much.
Daisy went white in the face, and for a moment it seemed like she had lost all control in her body. Like it was all strength, not control. Like she basically just went weak in the knees. The judge said, "You have been found guilty of the murder of your son, Rhodes Cecil Cowell. Do you have anything to say before I pass the sentence of death on you?" A silence hung over the courtroom before Daisy said, "I am not guilty of poisoning my son." The judge condemned her to death by hanging, and on the morning of the 30th of December 1932, Daisy de Melker was hanged at Pretoria Central Prison at 46 years old.
Oh.
She was the second woman to be hanged in South African history.
Wow. How many do you know were hanged?
She was also... I did not check that.
Oh, no, it's just because, like, the second out of, like, what, probably 2.
I'll actually have to check that. I'll check up on that. Maybe I'll...
But so young.
46, that's very young. She was dubbed as the first female serial killer in South Africa, and the case attracted almost unprecedented public interest. Queues of spectators literally lined up for hours each day before the proceedings began, and on the final day of the trial, some spectators actually waited overnight to make sure that they could have a place in court. And some sold their seats for up to £30 each. Which is a little bit gross.
Humans. I mean, people have been doing this for centuries.
True.
It's like with it, burn, Bundy, burn.
So,
were they selling like hot dogs and stuff?
Yes, exactly. And t-shirts and all sorts of things. So, the motive for killing her son remains unclear. Although it's speculated that she murdered him because he had been blackmailing her by threatening to tip off the police regarding her other murders unless she gave him money. But then I also read in another source that he was demanding more than Daisy could provide him, like just, as a son, as a child.
Yeah.
And he was basically becoming a burden, so she killed him. And then I also read that she might even just not have liked him, and that's why she killed him.
Oh, all right. Jeez. I thought it was because, his wife, I guess, that was saying that he wasn't doing much. And I thought it would be like a way to get rid. Yeah, I thought it would be like a way to get rid of him for her.
Yeah, I don't... Well,
who knows?
It's weird because it was her husband's sister that said that.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
That I don't know.
Yeah.
So Daisy actually became somewhat of a South African icon and has entered popular myths. For instance, every time a door blew shut in the wind, people would say it's the ghost of Daisy de Melker. Or if a child's hair was unkempt and wild, they said that you look like Daisy de Melker.
Alright.
And then also, rumour has it that Daisy's spirit haunts Ward 7 of the Transvaal's Children's Hospital, now known as Florence Transition Home in Braamfontein. She worked there as a nurse and learnt about poison. That's where she learnt about poisons and stuff like that.
Alright. Okay, that makes sense.
In 1993, a television miniseries was made about Daisy de Melker with Susan Kutzer in the title role. I haven't seen that. I tried to look for it, but I couldn't really find where to watch it.
Yeah.
And in September of 2005, a drag musical, Daisy's Well Hung, starring Robert Coleman as Daisy, was staged at the women's jail on Constitution Hill in Johannesburg, where the Melker was imprisoned prior to being hanged. And this show attempted to transform Daisy into a poltergeist of a husband killing femme fatale. So it's a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah, when you said drag, I was like, what?
Yeah, for me it almost, I don't know, I don't like things like that because it almost aims to sensationalize the murder.
Yeah, it's disrespectful of the victims.
I haven't seen it. I feel like that. I obviously haven't seen the musical, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
It might not be everyone's, but I just feel like it's a little bit disrespectful to the victims. You know, by all means, I couldn't see that they did anything wrong. They were just married to the wrong person, basically. Yeah. So Daisy is buried in Pretoria, and ghost bus tours actually happen once a month, and Daisy is included in the tour.
Okay.
I'm not sure the place that hosts the tour. I got this on the SAP's website. So I don't know if they host the tour. I doubt it.
That would be really interesting. Imagine the cops really just shooting at a ghost. What are you, American?
So there's information about her, Daisy, at the SAPS Heritage Museum in Pretoria, on Pretoria Street, in the Compol building.
We have a police service heritage museum?
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Oh.
And it's in Pretoria, so that might explain why we didn't know about it.
Yeah, true.
And that's the story of Daisy de Melker.
She sounds like a very interesting character, but also that's messed up. If you're going to murder people, don't poison them. It's so terrible.
But I guess that's what they say women usually do, right?
Yeah.
Is murdered by poisoning or whatever. So it's a very womanly thing to do, I guess. You're into committing murder. Yeah, she basically just murdered them for the money, I guess.
Alright, let me just save again. We're only on 48 minutes. I think that's the shortest.
That's quite a quick, it's quite a quick story.
It's probably because we're not right next to each other to talk a lot of crap and get in each other's way and all that.
Probably, but I also chose a shorter story for to come back, I guess.
Alright.
So I'm not used to researching anymore.
Yeah. No, I struggled with research. I just couldn't get myself to actually do it. I was that's why now at 6:30 I'm crikey, and I'm typing furiously.
Crikey.
Crikey. So I'm going to refill my wine, and I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, cool.
Right. That took so long for me to open my new box of wine.
Oh shit.
I couldn't open the cardboard. I was like,
But at least it's open now.
Yeah. I only got a 3 litre this time, but I got 10 litres of water, so that was nice. Yeah. I went to the vet and then I took her in the in our shopping trolley, I put her little cat carry case with her in there. And then I put like the groceries around that. Yeah. I was going through my notes for this, and then I was like, this is actually really kind of dark to start with, but so be it.
Well, luckily, like, my case was quite far removed, you know, so that wasn't so dark.
Well, yeah, mine is also, well, it's more recent, but yeah. It's a fascinating story. So, I wanted to do the Russian sleep experiment.
I'm so excited.
Which is perfect since we're going to go to sleep soon. Well, it's 8:30, but you know what I mean.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not after your freaking curtains freaked me out there. So, I was frantically typing my notes like 15 minutes before we started recording. So yeah, I just found the story so interesting. So the story is about an experiment that happened in a secret Soviet military facility in around 1947. The experiment centered around 5 prisoners. They were prisoners of war, or they were just enemies of the state. But they were 5 prisoners that were chosen for this experiment. The plan was to try and keep them awake for 30 days. This was in an attempt to outdo the British, the US, and the German armies who were using drugs to keep their soldiers alert for longer periods of time. So, amphetamines called Provitin were used by the Nazi troops during World War II, enabling them to go up to 3 days without sleep at a time during the invasion of France. Britain also Britain also used amphetamines, but they used much less than the Germans. I think like in a year they used a third of what the Germans used. Britain and the United States used the amphetamine called Benzedrine to achieve a similar result to this. So the Soviets were like, we've got to, keep up here. So these 5 men were promised that if they completed the 30-day experiment, they would be set free. The men were placed into a sealed gas chamber, which had a constant supply of an airborne stimulant to keep them awake. In this chamber, they were supplied with enough food, water, they were given books, and there were bathroom facilities to make sure that, they would last the 30 days.
Yeah.
The chamber was designed in such a way so that the oxygen intake could be measured. It also had a few thick glass porthole windows that the researchers could look in from, and there was like microphones and speakers so that they could communicate with the prisoners without entering the chamber, and because, the gas would be continuously going in there.
Yeah.
So for the first 3 days, everything seemed okay. However, the conversations between the men, which were being monitored by the scientists, grew increasingly darker, and from the 4th day, the men were discussing trauma and things that endured in their lives and like what led them to that position where they were. So it was just like, they were okay and they were like positive, and then they just turned really dark, and just like, I think the lack of sleep was getting to them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So they were just all in the same room.
Yeah. It was like one big room. There was like apparently beds, like
that
cots.
Seems very dangerous to me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hallucinate after a couple of... You're going to start hallucinating after a couple of days.
Yeah. So there was like apparently like bathroom facilities, but there was like a drain in the middle of the floor, and there was like places for them to be comfortable, like beds.
Why was there a drain in the middle of the floor?
I don't know. Maybe the bathroom situation? I don't know. But it was just this one room where they were all in there. So around the 5-day mark, the men who had not slept at all became even more unhappy with the situation and the things that had happened in their lives that got them to where they were. They started to complain and appeared to become paranoid. They stopped talking to one another and instead started whispering to the microphones and the windows. And I hate my notes. It seemed they didn't know that snitches get stitches, because they tried ratting out the other men to the researchers. So they were making up things about the other men that they kind of became friends with in the 4 days before, but now they were like paranoid of them and starting to try to out them to the researchers in order to like get favor with the researchers. So the scientists thought that maybe this was a result of the gas.
Okay, but they just made up shit.
Yeah. So at the 9-day mark, one of the men started screaming. So for around 3 hours, he screamed and he ran up and down the length of the chamber, and he was just screaming constantly. And he screamed for so hard and so long that he tore his vocal cords, and the only sound that could come out of him were little squeaks.
Oh my god.
The others in the room didn't seem to notice, or they didn't care about the screaming, and they kept on whispering to the microphone in the windows, trying to reach the researchers. And then another one of the men started to scream. So now one has lost his voice, another one has started screaming, and the three are just talking to the researchers.
To lose his voice sometimes.
Yeah. The three that weren't screaming started ripping the books apart and smearing page after page with their own poop, which they used
I knew that was gonna happen.
which they used as poo glue to paste the pages over the windows, blocking the researchers' view. So then, once the windows were covered, the screaming and whispering stopped.
What?
Then 3 days passed with no sound from in the chamber, and the researchers checked the mics hourly to make sure that they were working. The oxygen levels in the chamber showed that they should all still be alive, because they were consuming a lot of oxygen, as if they were doing like hectic exercise. By the 14th day, the researchers were like, okay.
So the heart rate actually increased, sorry.
Yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
they were quiet,
Right.
absolutely silent, but their hearts were like really pumping. And on the 14th day, the researchers were like, okay, these guys dead, what's happening? So they said that they wouldn't open the chamber, but they had to know what was going on, and no one was answering, so they used the intercom to try and find out what was happening. And the researchers said, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." The only response they received was one of the men saying, "We no longer wish to be freed."
What? Why?
Sorry,
I
just love it. Yeah, exactly. So the people involved with the experiment were perplexed by this, and they couldn't get any other response from the captives. They thought, okay, we're going to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. So that night, they cleared the chamber of the gas and filled it with fresh air. Maybe that's what that drain in the middle of the floor is for, to get the gas out.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
No, to get the gas out.
Yeah, because they took the gas out to put air back in so that they could open the chamber and the gas wouldn't then go to everyone else. As soon as the gas was gone, the men started speaking. The three that could still speak, and they started pleading for the gas to be turned back on. But this didn't happen. The chamber was opened.
So, so they almost developed the dependency on the gas or something.
Yeah. So then some soldiers were sent in to retrieve the men. The captives were screaming, and then the soldiers also screamed when they saw what was in the chamber. 4 of the captives were still alive. The food rations for the past 5 days or so had not been eaten. The dead guy, however, had pieces of his thighs and chest missing, rotting, and stuffed in the drain in the middle of the floor. The blocked drain meant that around 10 centimeters of, quote, water created a liquid barrier over the floor. It was unsure how much of that liquid was blood.
Oh my gosh.
The four men that were alive also had sections of skin and muscle missing from their bodies. Jeez, I can't speak anymore. They had done this to themselves with their own hands, and not with teeth. They had clawed their bodies apart. Their organs below the ribcage had been removed, placed outside of their bodies. Their lungs were visible through their rib cages as they had ripped the flesh off of there. Their digestive tracts could be seen outside of their bodies, apparently working, digesting their own flesh that they had been eating. My notes, the soldiers sent in to get these dudes were like, hell no.
Yeah, I would also just turn around right there. And then I would hand him my resignation as well.
Yeah, just like,
Goodbye.
I'm out of here.
See ya.
The captives begged to be left in the chamber with the gas turned on so that they wouldn't fall asleep. As the soldiers tried removing the men, they fought with surprising force, for not having most of their organs in their bodies. One of the Russian soldiers died when the captive he was trying to extract ripped his throat out. Another had his testicles removed and an artery in his leg severed when a captive bit him. 5 more soldiers died, including those who committed suicide after the fact, because of all the trauma.
What?
While struggling during being taken out of the chamber, One of the subject's spleen ruptured, and so emergency procedures were followed to try and save his life. He was bleeding out quickly, and the researchers tried sedating him, but it didn't work. They tried using 10 times the usual amount of morphine, but still he fought, and he broke a doctor's arm. The last 3 living subjects were restrained and taken to a medical facility to be treated. 2 of them could still speak and were begging for the gas so that they could stay awake. The one who was the most injured was taken to the only surgery available at the facility. The sedative they tried giving him so that they could put his organs back in his body didn't work on him. So he was restrained, and they administered more of the sedatives until finally his eyes closed. But he didn't go to sleep. He died. His autopsy determined that his body had triple the amount of oxygen of a typical man, and he had also broken 9 bones in the struggle. The second man to be worked on was the first that had started screaming and lost his vocal cords. So he couldn't speak. All he could do was violently shake his head when he saw the anesthetic gas being brought to the surgery room. So a nurse suggested, let's operate on him without using anesthetic. And he was excitedly nodding his head yes. He was like, let's do this. So for 6 hours they operated on him, putting his organs back into his body, and he didn't react. But a nurse said that she'd seen him smile a few times during the procedure. After the surgery, the captive started wheezing as if trying to speak. So the nurse brought him a piece of paper and a pen, and he wrote, "Keep cutting." The other two then
What the hell? No.
The other 2 then received the same surgery in the same way. But the surgeon found it tough to operate with the men laughing through the procedures. So they used a paralytic to keep... Yeah. So they used a paralytic to keep them still during the surgery, and the men just lied there with their eyes open, watching the surgeons, just like following them with their eyes. But the paralytic left their systems very quickly, so they were trying to get out of their restraints, and as soon as they could speak again after the paralytic, they were begging for the gas. So the researchers were like pleading for answers, like, why did they do this to themselves, and why did they want the gas so badly? And the men just simply said that they needed to stay away. And the 3 men were then restrained and placed back in the chamber while the military and researchers discussed the next way forward. The researchers suggested euthanizing the men because, at this point, what hope is there for them?
What do you do?
Yeah. But the commanding officer, who was an ex-KGB agent, wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. So even though the researchers objected, that happened. The subjects' restraints were padded for long-term confinement, and they were hooked up to EEG machines. As soon as the gas was back on, the men became calmer. They were trying to stay awake, with one humming, one moving their legs around in the restraints, like back and forth, just doing something to stay awake, and the other held his head off the pillow and blinked rapidly. So this one that was moving his head and blinking, he was the first one who was put onto the EEG machine and being monitored. It was mostly normal, but at times it flatlined. A nurse saw his head hit the pillow as the monitor showed him entering deep sleep and then flatlining for a final time. The only one of the 2 remaining captives that could still speak started screaming to be sealed into the chamber with the gas immediately. His brainwaves started showing the same flatlines as the first man. The commander ordered the chamber to be sealed, but a researcher pulled out a gun and shot this guy between the eyes. He then shot the subject that couldn't speak. At this point, the other people ran out of the place. They were like, I'm done with this. Let's get out of here. So he pointed the gun at the last subject, and he screamed, I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you. What are you? I must know. So this man, the captive, he smiled and he said, have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be freed at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence when you go to the nocturnal heaven where we cannot tread. The researcher shot a bullet into the man's exposed heart as the EEG flatlined, and the man said, so newly free.
What?
And of course that's not real, that's a creepypasta. But it's become an urban legend. The part about the other countries using drugs was true. They used amphetamines and stuff like this. But this was created by a user with the name of Orange Soda, which is the best name because Keenan and Cal. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're too young. All right. But I just love this story because it's so bizarre, but it's so like, I can see this happening.
It seems realistic. Exactly. It seems realistic. I was just going to say, when you were finished with this, like, it just kind of seems like they became addicts in a way. Like, they became addicted to the substance. You know, the substance caused them to do all sorts of wacky shit, which isn't far from reality. I mean, if you look at a lot of like substances and what it can do to you and your psyche and what it can cause you to do to yourself and other people.
Like, what was that?
It's not a far...
Like Flakka or whatever it was in
and
Florida and
bath
stuff.
salts
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
crap.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, just lack of
It's
sleep.
a far-fetched story.
Like, I was watching stuff about
that's
sleep
it.
deprivation as well, and the things that, you know, you hallucinate and the stuff that happens. So it kind of like, if you go that long without, you know, sleeping and you've got this drug in you, like, who knows what you're seeing, what you're hallucinating. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, so, yeah. I love the story. And as I was researching it, I was like, my room is dark. This is terrible. And then your freaking curtain freaked me out.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna like try and like angle my laptop. Like, no, well, that doesn't help.
And it also doesn't help that when you turned it, it went like creepy voice.
That's horrible. Well, we've done our first episode again.
Yay! Episode 10. Woo!
Yeah, what an episode to get back on.
Yeah.
Come back on, I guess.
Well, we're back. Yay!
We're back with a bang.
Yep.
Well, now the video is struggling a little bit and the audio, but luckily we're done.
Yeah.
You're literally just frozen. You're like frozen with your glass of wine.
I'm not surprised.
You have a smile on your face, so that's good.
I died as I lived. I'm excited to be back.
Anyway.
This is great.
Me too.
At least we've managed to do this. Yay!
Exactly. I was just gonna say, how do we usually close this out?
Oh, if you have listener stories, please send them to us.
Our email address is info@lawnoman.com.
Yay! You learned since the promo. We
You
have
can follow us on Instagram
at Law and Omen.
Law and Omen.
And Facebook at Law and Omen.
Law and Omen.
You can find our episodes on www.lawandomen.com or Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Deezer.
A lot of other things.
There's quite a few. Yeah, so you can find our other episodes. You can listen to those. Tell us if you like it, you don't like it. We want to hear from you.
But just be nice.
Yes, please. We're sensitive creatures.
So, catch us again next week.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yes.
What's the date next week?
What's today's date?
26th. No, 27th. Today's the 16th.
Yeah, we didn't record the day we said we were going to record. We said we were going to do the 13th,
No,
and it's
surprise.
the 16th. We almost didn't do it today. Yeah. We were going to do
know.
Friday.
That's what I'm saying. It's not bad for us. Yeah, so that's that. We're back. We used to sign off with something particular, but what did we do? I can't remember. Anyway, goodbye. I don't know what we said. This was Law and Omen. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah. Catch y'all later.
Catch you on the flip side. I need to go and listen to one of our old episodes.
Yeah.
I feel like we're missing something, but it's fine.
Yeah, probably. Well, we don't know how to do this anymore, so we'll see you next week, I guess.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Love you. Bye.